hey, Mr. Tothier, we're kicking off the What Are You Reading Challenge. And a book that had an impact on me is called Truman by David McCullough. And the reason why I like this book is that it showed Mr. Truman, or President Truman, from humble beginnings. He became the President of the United States and had a lot of different leadership aspects that were important to me and can be important to everybody else. It is a little bit thick, but it's a good read. I suggest that you read it. We're going to go on to other people, other faculty members, and let you know what they read that had an impact on them.
My favorite book is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. This book means a lot to me because it was my mother's favorite book. This is actually her version of the book. She gave it to me to read a long time ago, and I instantly fell in love with it. It's one of the few books that I've actually read twice. Since my mother passed away, I read it again, and I loved it again the second time. It's a great story. It was actually made into a movie, which was a great movie. Every time I read this book, it makes me think of my mom, and that's what makes it so special to me.
My go-to favorite book is A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I picked this as my favorite because it has my favorite stuff in it: romance, history, good literature, excellent vocabulary. Great for people who have to take an SAT or ACT. It is a recommend for everyone.
Dale Carnegie wrote one of the best-known motivational books in history, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I like this book because he addresses timeless questions about the fine art of getting along with people and handling people with a positive approach.
Hi, Mr. Cap here, and currently I'm reading After Alice by Gregory Maguire. Gregory Maguire is the person who wrote all the Wicked stories. The reason that I'm reading this right now and that I brought this in is because one of my favorite stories is Alice in Wonderland, and it's actually had a big impact on me throughout my life, because it was the first time that I came across something when I was reading as a child, and then as I grew older, where I learned how words can have so many different meanings and things can be taken in so many different ways. And for those of you that know me, puns are a really big part of my life. And this story, even though Lewis Carroll says it's for kids, has so much more meaning for adults. And that I know that I guess some of you being around here sometimes feel like you're in Wonderland. So read something and it will make a great impact on your life.
This is my favorite book, Little Women, because it has my favorite quote, which is, "I am not afraid of the storm, for I am learning how to sail my ship."
Hi, my name is Mrs. Tuckett. My favorite book is To Kill a Mockingbird. I think that everyone should read it because it not only has relatable characters, but it also has relatable life lessons that we are currently going through in society right now. I also think there's a lot of humor that is in this book, so every time I read it, I find something funny about it, and I also learn something new. So I really think you should go out and read it.
The book I'm currently reading is Better by Amy Robach. Amy Robach is an anchor on Good Morning America, and last year she went through the same thing I'm going through with breast cancer. Was actually diagnosed after a mammogram on air, and this book chronicles all her trials and tribulations, and it's inspiring me because it's showing me that someone else has gone through what I'm going through and has survived.
I'm Mrs. Sajone. My favorite book is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I first read this when I was in high school, but since then I've probably read it about 25 to 35 more times. I really like it because I like Fitzgerald's commentary on the American dream. I also really like teaching this book to students. I love seeing their reaction, especially towards the end of the book. I've had students cry, laugh, get angry, and they always like discussing this with me in the classroom and outside the classroom.
I'm Mrs. Strom, and two books that have had a profound impact on my life are Edith Hamilton's Mythology and Snorri Sturluson's The Prose Edda. This is Norse mythology and this is Greek mythology, and I absolutely love mythology. A lot of people think that they're just stupid little stories, but I've been able to understand literature on a much deeper level because of knowing all of the mythological references that I learned in these two books. And I just find it to be such a fascinating subject, and I know a lot of students share my passion for it, even if other people don't understand it. So these will always be two sources that I love.
I read a lot of books. A lot of mine kind of go into like sci-fi and fantasy stuff, but the one that I always go back to is one called Siddhartha by Herman Hesse. It's kind of outside my normal genre, but it kind of is one that I can always read. It gives me a little perspective on life. When things, I don't know, things seem overwhelming, or I start giving importance to things that I don't think are really that, I don't know, that aren't that important. Siddhartha kind of brings you back to the basics, to what really is important. So this is my go-to.
Mr. Schraub here, and the book that I'm currently reading is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. The reason I like this book, or this journal, is because it is simply his thoughts, the most powerful man in the world at the time, his philosophical views on being a leader, what it is to be a father, and what it is to be a friend. These are important topics to me now, at this time in my life. It's something I've read before, and it's something I always go back to when I have an existentialist angst or idea of where I am and where I want to go.
As part of my academic career, I've literally read hundreds of books. On a personal level, I've read slightly less. There's only one book that leads to success in life and beyond, and that is the Bible. It truly gives a path for success, and is truly a must-read.
The book that I just finished reading is called Lots of Candles, Plenty of Cake, and it was by Anna Quinlan. And this book has really touched me because it talks a lot about life and being a mother, being a working mother, being a wife, being a friend. And there's a lot of really great information in this book, and I've actually pinned several pages that I just go back and look at because there's such a great message to it. So if you get a chance, I highly recommend it. It is Lots of Candles, Plenty of Cake.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Hall, and I wanted to talk about my favorite book, The Little Prince, by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. This is a great classic novel, read all over the world. It's beloved by millions and millions of people for many generations. It's my favorite, and I get emotional about it, that's just life. It's my favorite because it talks about the crossroads between adulthood and childhood, and that you really can't be in such a hurry to grow up that you forget the important things that children know and remember and feel. It's also a fable, and this little prince is a character that travels through the universe, meeting characters and learning about the secret of life. And that's what it's about.
Okay, I'm here to tell you about the book that I recently read over the summer, and it's called Andrew Wyeth, A Secret Life, and it's by Richard Merriman. I chose this book because Andrew Wyeth is one of my very favorite artists, and his artwork is hauntingly beautiful, somewhat eerie in a sense, and I wanted to understand the meaning behind. I was really glad I read the book because it gave me a lot of insight into why he created his artwork and why it was so beautiful.
I'm Lori Rimmel, and I have two books that I brought in today. I have Fairy Tales from the Brothers Grimm, and I've always been, I feel like, drawn to things with a dark underbelly, and I feel like this book has that because it's like children's stories, but also there's a darkness and lots of good symbolism. I also like Bossy Pants by Tina Fey because Tina Fey is bae. And what I like about Bossy Pants is that it's hysterical. I laughed cover to cover. And I also like that she's a woman and she's a boss, and she's a great role model for ladies, I think.
I'm Senora Hassan, and the book that I've chosen is La Casa de los Espíritus por Isabel Allende. It is, of course, entirely in Spanish, and it is a classic of Spanish literature. The reason that this has impacted my life and my perspective is it is a very significant book in Spanish culture and politics that has happened throughout the countries that I teach my students about. It also has a huge, strong family ties that it incorporates throughout the book. It actually follows 4 generations of women throughout of the same family. And so family to me obviously is something that is very important, and it is something that I strive to be the best mom I could be. And I just feel that this incorporates being a mom and a teacher, and those are 2 things that I hold dear to my heart.
Asking me to pick a favorite book is like asking me to pick a favorite child. But if I had to pick one, I'd go back to my childhood and pick Bram Stoker's Dracula, because I grew up in the middle of nowhere with nothing to do, and this was my one way to escape from the boredom.
Hi, I'm Mr. Moulton. I chose Uncommon by Tony Dungy. I like this book because it helps you develop as a person. It's about finding your path to significance in life, in the world. So I just like books that help me become a better person and develop myself as a human.
My book that I read was called Spark, which was recommended to me by my nephew Shane. It's a book written by John J. Rattay. He's a medical doctor, and the book goes on. It begins to discuss how a school in Chicago altered their physical education plan around reaching target heart rate. That's just a short insert. It's a very difficult read. It's very science-oriented, but one of the most important books I think anyone could read, because exercise is life.
Hi, Mr. Sheen here. The book that I read recently was Mockingjay, part of the Hunger Games series, and this book was interesting to me, basically because my wife took me to the movies to see the other, I believe, 3 movies before, actually 2 movies before the third, and I just sparked an interest with that, and I wanted to read more about the new movie that's coming out at the end of November here, and I didn't want to wait that long, so I decided to start reading the book, and it's very interesting. And one of the things that I would suggest to people is read something that's interesting to you, whether it's a magazine, book. Make sure you have an interest in it, and if you do, then it's definitely going to be enjoyable for you.
So this article is about Marty Ashton. He was a pro mountain biker, and he got paralyzed from the waist down in a mountain biking accident 3 years ago. And this story documents his trip back to actually getting on a bike. And they made this guy really realize a dream once again, that he could ride a mountain bike one last time, probably, but you never know. So that's my inspiration. I thought it was a pretty cool story. That's it.
Mr. Grabowski here. The book I would like to discuss is The Kite Runner. The reason I chose this book is because it provides an interesting story as well as providing insight into the culture of the Middle East. I found this very impactful in my life because when I was in Afghanistan, this book is very helpful in helping me understand the people that I encountered.
Hi, my name's Tom Kanger. The book I decided to read was Born to Run. It's a good paperback book. It's about Christopher McDougall, who actually put a search on through the African desert to find some Tarahumara Indians who are long-distance runners. They've been known to run hundreds of miles. So 100 miles for them is nothing. How to hide from people is nothing, because it was all in history, and this is how we kind of developed. So I really enjoyed it. It's kind of running, which is kind of what I do, but also it had a whole bunch of hidden things inside of it that I got out.
Hello, I'm Mr. Ulickney, and the book that I am going to encourage all of you to read, because I've read it and it impacted my life greatly, is Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States. This is a different kind of history book because it looks at history for what it is, gritty, real, humanistic. It doesn't sugarcoat. And I think if more students looked at history this way, they'd actually enjoy it more because they would see how real it really is and how it affects them. So I've read it, you should read it, and everyone should read more.
Okay, I have 3 books that really influenced me. First up, we have One Nation by Dr. Ben Carson, What We Can All Do to Save America's Future. As the United States is $19 trillion in debt, offers suggestions how Republicans and Democrats can work together to solve some of the country's major problems. One of my favorites. I also have The End of Prosperity, how higher taxes will doom the economy if we let it happen. This is written by famous economists Art Laffer and Stephen Moore of the Wall Street Journal. And this book is just amazing, as is Return to Prosperity, the sequel to it, how America can regain its economic superpowers.
My go-to book for environmental science is Rachel Carson's Silent Spring. It brings into account the water pollution that was occurring in the area and how it affected the environment. It was one of the first books that was an easy read for everyone to look at and covered environmental issues. So, good read, recommend it.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Boyle, and I chose the book One Nation Undertaught by Dr. Vince Bertram. It's a nonfiction book, and it talks about American students' gradual decline in the global rankings in education, and particularly in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, which we refer all together as STEM. But all of those solutions, at the heart of all of them, and this is why it impacts me so much, is the idea that it's really important for educators to instill in students the falling in love with science and STEM-related subject areas, so that they feel motivated to major in them in college and then go on to have amazing careers in those fields. So I find it a personal responsibility to help instill that love and also provide students with the tools to be successful in STEM careers.
The book that I read is The Day the Earth Caved In by Joan Quigley. This is a non-fiction book based on the events that happened in the town of Centralia. I recommend this book if you are interested in learning about this particular mining disaster.
For our literacy challenge, I am reading Let the Tornado Come. This is a memoir of a young girl who decides to run away from her dysfunctional family. As she becomes a wealthy writer and the wife of a famous surgeon, she learns she is haunted by I chose this book for our challenge because I want you all to chase your own dreams and overcome your fears, learn from your pasts. I think it's important to challenge yourself and not be afraid of things that challenge you and are bigger than you. I want you to participate in this challenge, step out of your own comfort zone, and allow yourself to see how much potential you really have.
Hi, this is my book, Tamaqua Tales. It's actually written by a pastor from a local church. I enjoy reading about it because I enjoy the history of Tamaqua, and there's a lot of really cool facts that we found. Thank you.
I'm Miss Sabrina Halleck. I'm one of the guidance counselors here at Tamaqua Area Senior High School. The book that I chose is Brain on Fire by Susanna Callahan. The reason that I chose this book is actually suggested to me by one of my friends who works in the psychology field. The reason I like the book is because it shows you that people are always fighting their own battles and you never know what somebody may be going through. And I really like it because things aren't always what they seem. So in this book, she has, a diagnosis that she gets from doctors, and they keep being incorrect and incorrect and incorrect. And finally, they find out that she has a very rare disease. But a lot of the times, the doctors were jumping to conclusions. And I think it's a good read because I think that as a society, sometimes we jump to conclusions when we really shouldn't. So I highly suggest it.
My favorite book is The First Phone Call from Heaven. It's by Mitch Albom, and it was just special to me because it was the first book I read after my husband passed away, and it just kind of gave me peace in my heart.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Kineski from the principal's office. My favorite book is A Long Fatal Love Chase by Louisa May Alcott. The reason being, when I was a little girl, my mother used to read me Louisa May Alcott stories, Little Women, Eight Cousins. They were about sisters that was like from the 1800s.
So if you want a very good suspenseful book, and actually, it is like what could happen today. It doesn't sound like something out of the 1800s. It was a lost manuscript that she wrote 2 years before Little Women, and it was not published until 1996. And it's a great read. So it's A Long Fatal Love Chase by Louisa May Alcott. I highly recommend it.
My favorite novel is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I think that it is a wonderful novel and everyone should read it. And it demonstrates that you don't always know what people are thinking or how they're feeling, and that there's more to people than meets the eye.
This is my all-time favorite book. It's called Silas Marner. It's a story about a man becoming a father for the first time to a daughter that he adopts, and then eventually the daughter's real father tries to take her from him, and it's about how the daughter identifies Silas Marner as her real father, and it's a very sweet and heartwarming story. It impacts my life because now I look back on it having just become a mother myself, and it's just a very heartwarming story.
When we talk about the reading challenge, my story's a little different. I have a 2-year-old son, and we read stories every day. His favorite book is called Newton, and in the story of Newton, it's a bear who kind of resembles Pooh, and he hears lots of noises. So what we do is when we read the story, we go around the house and we pretend like he is Newton the bear, and he finds out where the noises are coming from and how they are and how to fix them.
Book series is Love Comes Softly by Jeanette Oakes, and it shows the hardships that women have overcome throughout history, and it makes me appreciate everything we have today.
Reading is one of my favorite things to do. Especially in the summer, I'll go in the backyard, sit on my deck and read. So right now, I'm reading Runner's Magazine because I absolutely love running, and look, I even have proof to do it. So running and reading my favorite hobbies.
Hi, I'm Shane McCabe, and the book that I'm talking about is Fred 2.0. It's a book that I read for my master's class for leadership and professional development. So what I do is I try and use the influences and the stories inside of this and apply it to my class to get my students to realize what they're doing and how their actions impact not only just that class, but how it can carry over to the rest of their life and their school day.
Hi, this is Eric Zitzelman here to talk about my favorite book, Cryptonomicon by Neil Stephenson. It's basically a work of both historical fiction and it's very, very entertaining. It's very big. But most importantly, I think it demonstrates the dangers of relying too heavily on privacy based on encryption methods and what could possibly happen. So hope you enjoy it and keep on reading. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Mr. Kinder, and the book that I'm reading for the What Are You Reading Challenge is Playing for Night by Steve Alford. Steve Alford was a basketball player at Indiana University who played under legendary coach Bob Knight. What I took from this book and what made it significant in my life was learning how to deal with adversity and even in difficult circumstances, being able to have great achievements and great outcomes. So this is a book that inspired me, and I hope you find a book that inspires you as well.
I graduated at Tamaqua High School. I'm currently reading Perks of Being a Wallflower. Perks of Being a Wallflower has a lot to do with diversity and adversity. I felt that coming to Philadelphia from a small town of 4,000 people is important to read a book about diversity and adversity in real life situations, such as in Perks of Being a Wallflower. The story also has a movie to correspond with it that puts real faces to the characters, and if you would like to read more about diversity and adversity, I absolutely recommend this book. And
Melanie Scuba, I love to read. My dream would be for someone to send me to my room for a very long extended period of time so I could do nothing but read books like this, The Handmaid's Tale. One of the things that I really enjoy are stories of females overcoming subjugation such as this, when a crazy theocracy takes over the country and forces women into subjugation and sometimes slavery. But the other thing is not just physical or dystopian. Another favorite book, if you don't mind, would be Rebecca. Now this is another one where there's female subjugation. Don't walk away from me. Because this is one where she marries a much older man, and then it's the mental and the physical stress of it. But it can't be just that. Wait, Ms. Brooks, there's also Possessing the Secret of Joy by Alice Walker. And this is about a woman from Africa who has to deal with the customs and the physical and the mental pain, and of course the subjugation of her country. And then there's not only that, what about The Jungle? From Up the
Enough, Scuba, enough!
Oh, fine, just read.
The building today, what are you reading or what have you read that made an impact on your life? Let's kick it off.